Welcome to Couch Quarterbacks.
Hello guys, welcome to the Couch Quarterbacks in a brand new location.
I was going to say, it looks a little bit different around here.
Yeah, a new set for a wonderful time to predict Week 6. We have a great episode for y'all. It's really early in the morning, at least for me.
Yeah, Stein, since this isn't a full-time job for us, we're kind of working around our other schedules. You obviously have class and stuff. I've got a couple different jobs, so we got to make do with what we got. We usually film these episodes Friday afternoon, kind of when the injury reports are coming out. We're filming this earlier in the morning. It's 9:08 right now on Friday morning, so we're waking up before the players are. They're practicing right now. So
if the gears are a little bit slower this morning, everyone, now y'all know why. I'm going to try my best to stick with y'all and keep up with Roach, as he's already had one energy drink deep today.
I'm pretty much close to finishing off this first energy drink, but like Stein said, we'll hop into our Week 6 preview. We'll recap the Thursday night football game from last night, and then, of course, we'll spin the wheel of punishments as I lost last week, so I'll be spinning the wheel of punishment, see what we get on this episode. But without further ado, Stein, let's hop into it with our Thursday night football recap. The Bucs moving to 5-1 on the season, beating the Eagles 28-22. The Bucs were up early in this game, up 28-7, and then kind of went on cruise control. The Eagles made a nice comeback effort, making it a 28-22 ball game late in the fourth quarter, but Tom Brady and that Bucs offense kept the ball for the rest of the ball game, didn't let the Eagles get it back, and they ended up taking a knee inside the 10-yard line and ran out the clock.
Yeah, I mean, this game we could tell from going into it that the fact that the Bucs were going to win it handedly. I checked the score. I didn't even watch the game last night because it was kind of good. I knew it was going to be a laugher. And I checked the score probably around halftime, and they were up, 20-something to 7.
I think it was 21-7 or something.
Yeah, and I was like, all right, this is kind of what we predicted. So, but the fact that the Eagles did make it a little bit closer is good for them. I mean, Brady didn't have as much of a Brady-esque performance that we've seen early on.
And that's most of his stats actually came on the first two drives. They got touchdowns on both those drives. And really after that, it was a lot of Leonard Fournette as he had 2 rushing touchdowns on the night. Yeah,
Brady still was 34-42, 297, 2 touchdowns and a pick. Wasn't last week's performance of, 400, 5 touchdowns.
Yeah, was dealing with the thumb injury as well. There were a couple throws that were not Brady-esque in terms of downfield, just very off on his passes. Like the one interception, he was trying to hit Antonio Brown deep and overthrew him by about 5 or 10 yards. So I think the thumb injury maybe affected him just a little bit, but overall still a decent performance for him.
Yeah, also on the field was Antonio Brown. With 13 targets, 9 catches for 93 and a tutty, kind of taking up spots with Godwin being out there. Excuse me.
Yeah, that's what, AB was just, it's unfair that they were able to get him in this offense because he's really the number 3 receiver. He's not even out there in their run formations, and he's just been great all season for them. Missed the one game because of COVID, but really took over in this ball game. Godwin and Mike Evans, neither one of them had very good ball games. Godwin 5 catches. Mike Evans he had a catch on the first drive and then had 1 catch the rest of the game. So AB really stepped up for this offense. And then, like I said, Leonard Fournette, he got 22 carries for 2 rushing touchdowns and then also had 6 catches for 46 yards. He was not really known as a receiving back, but he's really taken over as kind of like a safety valve for Brady the past couple weeks.
Yeah, so, the Bucs are rolling. Their offense is looking good. Let's move to the Eagles where, Hurts actually not as much, they didn't really let him lose as much as we thought they would. 12 of 26 for only 115 yards with a touchdown and a pick. Not great numbers. I know you're going against a really good Bucs defense, but still,
Yeah, that's what the Bucs defense came in worst in the league in terms of pass yards per game allowed.
Rush defense.
At over 300 yards per game. The rush defense, yes, they're allowing less than 50 yards per game. So that's really their dominant force. But yeah, Jalen Hurts only 115 pass yards, so not a good performance from him. Did have 2 rushing touchdowns, kind of save his day fantasy-wise if you got him on your fantasy team. So that definitely helped. But he was for sure stymied by this the Bucs defense, especially in the first half. really started to get it going late when the Eagles tried to make their comeback push. But besides Jalen Hurts, there was really no one notable. Miles Sanders had a couple of decent touches late in the second half. Devontae Smith was held to about 2 catches in the ball game. Zach Ertz had a touchdown, but there was really no one else notable for this Eagles offense because they were pretty much stopped by the Bucs defense in general.
Yeah, it was kind of a get-right game for that bad pass defense. Now you say that there was a questionable taunting call, and I didn't watch this game, so I'm kind of interested.
Yeah, so the taunting call has been something that was brought up by the league in the offseason. It's been something that's been enforced, and kind of some questionable calls have been made throughout the season. So it was right after the Eagles scored the touchdown, 2-point conversion to make it 28-22. There was, on the first down run, it was like a 2-yard gain for Leonard Fournette. He got up, the dude that tackled him kind of got in his face a little bit and just was kind of almost like yelling in his direction, and they threw the 15-yard taunting penalty at him. If you look back at the replay, there's really nothing that seemed to warrant a flag on the play.
It just got jawing.
I mean, there's no guarantee that the Eagles would have gotten the stop anyway, but it would have set up a 2nd and 8 instead. The 15-yard penalty puts them at 1st and 10, and like I said, the Patriots, the Bucs kept driving down the field and ended up being able to ice out the game the rest of the way. So, I mean, it could have come back to bite the Eagles in the long run, but it was also on a first down play, so who really knows? But it's just another thing that's come up this season with those taunting calls that really haven't done, where guys haven't done a whole lot, and they still get the flag thrown on them.
Yeah, that's something that's definitely going to be pushed back at the end of this season, if not throughout this season, just from the players themselves. I mean, we saw Darren Waller get a flag for just spinning a ball, or spiking it,
he was spinning it on their sideline or something like that.
Yeah,
there's been a number of penalties that have been thrown for taunting that just they haven't seemed to warrant anything being thrown.
Yeah, but it's also a double standard though, because some of these guys get these really nice sacks, and then they'll do this a whole elaborate dance and waste time. And it's all right, that's fine, but it's if you flex just a little bit after getting a good run, and it's not even you're flexing on the competition, you're flexing because that was a good run by yourself. It's ridiculous.
Like you said, it's definitely something that's going to continue to be brought up throughout this season and definitely in the off season.
Yeah. If that pass interference rule didn't stick, this rule's not going to stick.
Yeah, it was there for one season and that was it. But looking ahead for both these teams, the Bucs, like I said, moved to 5-1 on the season. Their next matchup, they got a home matchup versus the Bears.
Oh God, if Hurts' numbers look like that, imagine what
Justin Fields and that numbers. Bears offense numbers are going to look like. And then the Eagles falling to 2-4 on the season, definitely getting behind in the NFC East compared to the Cowboys. They go on the road to Las Vegas to face a struggling Raiders team, so that could be a decent matchup.
Yeah, a good matchup.
Especially since the Raiders could fall to 3-3, have a new head coach coming in now with Gruden's departure. So that's just looking ahead to both those teams. So let's move on to our next segment, which is our Wheel of Punishments. Stein, after a 2-game losing streak for you, you had a amazing week, the best week of the season by anyone so far at 14-2. I went 11-5 last week. I lost all 3 of our head-to-head matchups, so not a good week for me, as I'll get this wheel pulled up and we can spin. Yeah. All right, let's spin the wheel. Oh, great. This is the easiest punishment I could get.
Yeah, this is easy.
Venmo $10. So I'll put in a screenshot of our transaction where I sent you $10. I'm sure I'll see that back in a couple weeks.
Probably, yeah. It depends on how much food we get. I could use the $10 or I could get some snacks today. Maybe a cup of coffee for me.
Yeah, there you go. I mean, meals on me today, Stein, since I had to wake you up early to get this podcast going.
Thank you. Breakfast on Roach.
But overall in the season, you really caught up in the standings. You're just 1 game behind me. We both had the Bucs last night. So just 1 game behind me in the standings going into week 6, our first bye week of the season.
Yeah, we have a lot of... we have some not a lot of teams, because I think there's 1 week where there's 6 teams on bye or something.
I think it's either this upcoming week or week 8 where there's 6 teams on bye.
Yeah, we got the Falcons, the Saints, the Niners, and the Jets. One of those teams is not like the other ones.
In terms of fantasy, I would say this isn't terrible. In terms of the guys lost, I mean, Alvin Kamara is going to be the big one for the Saints.
Yeah, Falcons, Pitts, and Ridley. I mean, Ridley, we still don't know. He was still listed as questionable, even with a bye. I don't know how that happens.
Yeah.
But,
and then for the 49ers, you got like Deebo Samuel, whatever running backs, Elijah Mitchell, stuff like that. And the Jets, Corey Davis.
Yes, for the Jets.
Yeah, so overall, in terms of fantasy, it's not a terrible loss in terms of these 4 teams. But let's hop into our Week 6 preview. We have another guest picker this week. Our buddy Zach is guest picking for us. Could not be here to record.
Yes, he lives in Savannah.
Yeah, so we'll have his picks and kind of go over them throughout the week. This is going to be a great week, Stein, because the 3 of us have a lot of games different. So
and Zach has a lot different than both of us.
Yeah, so when we go through it, he's actually got 4 games where he's different from both of us. So it could go really good for him, or it could go really bad for him. But let's hop into our first game, Stein. Better get that alarm set early again because we got another London game.
And this one's even worse, I feel like. Like, the 2 teams are worse.
You thought you could get worse than the Falcons and the Jets,
well,
but this actually might.
At least I had a stake in the Falcons game. This is the one. This is the game I'm not going to watch.
Yeah, no, this is.
We'll see the highlights on Red Zone at 2 o'clock.
This is going to be a rough matchup as the Dolphins at 1-4 face off against the London Jaguars. It seems like they're there every single season.
Winless Jags going across the pond. Right now, the Jags are looking at a 19 or 20 game losing streak. Could potentially go to 21, which is actually the second longest in the Super Bowl era.
With the loss last week, they passed the Lions for the second longest as they were both tied at 19. And then the Dolphins are on their own losing streak after starting out 1-0, beating the Patriots week 1. They have lost 4 in a row, and they've been outscored by 76 points in that span. So definitely 2 teams that are going in the same direction, but it's the wrong direction.
You have the wheels completely off for one team, and the wheels slowly falling off for the Dolphins.
You got 3 wheels off, and one wheel's hanging on by a thread.
Yeah, the Dolphins are that one cart that you get at Target, with the wheels just
just all busted and everything.
And the Jags are the one cart without wheels.
You're just dragging it across the ground, making a huge
exactly.
loud noise.
You have Urban Meyer just making so much noise, and it's going to be interesting because this game is in London. A lot of people say that the Jags, this is their home away from home.
Like I said, it seems like they play there just about every year, every other year.
Yeah, so it could be, I don't know if there's a potential home field advantage for them and going into this.
Hey, I mean, if they're playing so many years in London, maybe they got some Jaguars fans there.
Yeah, I know there's a smattering of jerseys for both teams. They're all over the league. There might probably even some LeBron jerseys. It's just people are just
that happen. You see that happen here too. Anyone, if they're got tickets to a sporting event, they think that's kind of an excuse to wear just any sort of sports jersey.
Yeah, but it's so egregious, and I might watch it just for the spectacle fact. Plus, I'm trying to wake up earlier these days, so I appreciate you waking me up.
Yeah, no problem.
But let's talk about who's going to be playing in this game because we have a few injuries to report.
Yeah, so the Dolphins, Tua obviously has been out the past couple weeks with a rib injury. He has been practicing a little bit this week, so he has a chance to play. I never saw anything saying that if he made the trip to London or not, but there is a chance that he's going to be the starter on Sunday. Obviously, Jacoby Brissett has been starting the past couple games.
Well, I think there's a chance he's going to start. I think he made the trip.
And that's what Brissett has been dealing with a hamstring injury now as he got hurt last week. In their game, so I don't know if you're the Dolphins, who you'd rather have starting at quarterback. I would assume it'd be Tua, even if he's less than 100%. But either way, I think it's kind of almost a lose-lose situation.
Yeah, I mean this would be a defense though for Tua to hopefully get right or at least
definitely
at least hand the ball off a bunch. You don't have to make all those throws.
Yeah, it could be without one of their best receivers in Devontae Parker, who missed the game last week with a hamstring injury. He didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, but I did see that he made the trip over to London, so that's at least a good sign that he has a chance to be able to play Sunday morning. So if Tua is able to come back, it'd be nice to have his probably top option at receiver in Devontae Parker.
Yeah, exactly. And I actually didn't think Tua would be ready. I thought he might have been waiting because I thought they had the bye after this, but the Dolphins actually don't have a bye.
Yeah, I thought when you had a game in London that you were
so
always
too,
set up with a bye.
They go right into playing the Falcons, so I thought they were going to bring.
I mean, could that be kind of like a bye? No, I'm
not
kidding.
For a 1-5
I was just saying,
or 1-4.
Not for the Dolphins, the team that they've been this season, but. In terms of the Jaguars, it's pretty much the same thing. You mentioned the Urban Meyer, just continued controversy and everything like that.
Even when he's not trying to be controversial, he had him and Trevor doesn't seem to be on the same page. We saw that last week.
This is probably going to be one of their best chances to get a win in a while against a struggling Dolphins team where you don't know who their quarterback's going to be. Their offense just as a whole has been struggling.
Yeah.
The run game hasn't been able to get it going.
Defense that was supposed to be good. Xavier Howard just got torched by, the Bucs last weekend. So
so it's really anybody's game when you're talking about a 1-4 and an 0-5 team. But Stein, let's hop into the fantasy outlook. So for the Dolphins, you're going to start Myles Gaskin, start Jalen Waddle, and start Mike Gesicki. Those are. Yeah,
I was going to say, even though Gaskin had an amazing week last week, especially with...
It was all receiving wise.
Yeah, but I'm saying especially, because we've seen the Dolphins kind of be like the Niners and have like 3 or 4 different backs. You still got to stick with Gaskin, though, even coming off as good of a performance.
Yeah, he's the best guy, definitely. Jalen Waddle, especially if Devontae Parker's not going to be out there, you're going to start him. He's had a down week the past couple weeks from his 12-catch game a couple weeks ago. And then Mike Gesicki, after having a bad week 1, has been solid and one of their better options receiving wise, so you're going to fire him up in the tight end position. And then whoever's going to start a quarterback, whether it's Tua or Brissett, I think you sit them even in a plus matchup against the Jaguars. Both of them, Tua in terms of coming off an injury, Brissett dealing with a hamstring injury, so I wouldn't be confident in starting either one of them.
Even against a crappy Jags defense.
Yeah, there's got to be better quarterback options. But on the Jaguar side, you're going to start James Robinson, who's been great this season. Laviska Shenault, Marvin Jones Jr., I think you can fire both of those guys up as the top 2 receiving options for the Jaguars. And then I think there's some deep value in terms of Trevor facing off against this underperforming Dolphins defense. And then even Dan Arnold, who had a great week last week, was their leading receiver, 6 catches, 64 yards. So I think he's got some deep tight end value at a shallow position.
Yeah, that Lawrence Arnold connection could start to be developed. So that could be, definitely something that will help them. So for this game, you and Zach both picked the Jags.
Yeah,
I picked the Dolphins.
I'm having a little PTSD when I typed in the Jaguars because remember I had them a couple weeks ago and that was just a very bad pick on my part. But it's 2 struggling teams, and I think the thing that put me over for the Jaguars was just the uncertainty at the quarterback position for the Dolphins and just how much they've been struggling on offense as a whole. They're not facing a world-beating defense in the Jaguars, but I think that's going to be a close kind of low-scoring game, and the Jaguars could pull it out at the very end.
This is one of those where it's like we're probably going to overthink it, and it's probably going to be the Dolphins just destroying the Jags,
It could be. I feel like a lot of the London games are very hit or miss. It's either way down to the wire or it's just a complete blowout.
Yeah, so this one, is going to be interesting because it's technically a Jags home game, and we will see, I feel like, more Jags fans overall. But I still got to take the Dolphins just because I want to see the Jags go 0-17, and I think that would be hilarious.
All right, well, let's move on to our next game. We'll hop into the 1 o'clock window now.
Big rivalry game.
I was going to say the first game we'll talk about an NFC North battle. The 4-1 Packers, a 5.5-point favorite on the road, traveling to Chicago against the 3-2 Bears squad.
The fakest 3-2 team.
Yeah, with the terrible offense that we've been talking about. But this is a rivalry, like you said, where Aaron Rodgers is definitely familiar with and has been absolutely amazing in. In his 26 starts against the Bears in his career, he is 21-5, and one of those losses was that game a couple years back where he was injured on the first drive of the game. So really 21-4 in 25 matchups. He's just completely dominated the Bears in his career.
Yeah, and we've seen Bears fans, all over Twitter and in various places just complain about this guy has your number, similar to what Drew Brees, kind of did to the Falcons.
And then to make matters worse, he's coming in on a 4-game win streak as well. The Packers have been looking great besides week 1 this season.
Yeah, Adams' connection is looking awesome. They're running the ball very well with Jones and Dillon. So it's just going to be a very tough matchup. The Bears' defense is pretty good.
Definitely the strength of their team compared to their offense.
It's gonna help reduce what Aaron can do, but when it's all said and done, Aaron's gonna do what Aaron wants to do against this team, and they're just gonna pass the ball all over the places because that defense is gonna be out on the field way too much because this offense is gonna get kicked off right off the field. Even though the Packers' defense isn't that good,
they've been missing a lot of pieces on the defense. Jair Alexander, Zadarius Smith, both of those guys won't be out there on Sunday. But talking about the Packers' offense, we'll look over at the Bears' offense now, who was bad anyway, and now they're dealing with a couple of injuries. So Allen Robinson, their number one receiver, is dealing with an ankle injury. He didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, so it's a question of whether or not he'll be out there on Sunday as their lead guy. Justin Fields has been dealing with a knee injury. He should be good to go out there. But then also the running game. They lost David Montgomery, so their backup Damian Williams had a touchdown last week and a decent performance. He got put on the COVID list on Thursday, so next man up is you got the rookie Khalil Herbert will be next in line for touches. Damian Williams getting put on there on Thursday. I imagine there's no way he's going to be out there on Sunday, so look for the rookie to get the majority of the carries. He had 18 touches and looked decent last week, though.
Yeah, I mean, he's a guy I actually picked up, so I'm excited to hear that because he's somebody that I'm going to be plugging in because this Bears offense is run first, and we've seen that. They're probably going to be down, though, against this Packers team, so they might be trying to pass it. But, Fields is missing one of his best targets with Robinson, so it's going to be interesting. They might pass the ball a lot to Herbert. Herbert could definitely eat a lot of everything.
Yeah, just get plenty of touches out there, especially if Robinson's not able to go. Darnell Mooney has been dealing with injuries all season, but he's been playing.
Maybe they'll use their like carousel of tight ends.
The 8 or 9 tight ends they got on their roster. But like I said, this Bears offense, they've been the worst offense in terms of yards per game this season, and then third worst in points per game. So it's going to be tough to match up with the Packers offense if they try and get into a scoring battle. The only way the Bears could come out on top is if this is a very low scoring 13-10, 17-13 ball game, something like that.
And the Packers are certainly capable of producing a stinker like that. We saw
38-3 in the first game of the season against the Saints. So.
It's been that game's in the rearview mirror for them. It's been all downhill, or I guess uphill? I don't know.
Yeah,
I hate that expression.
It's been all uphill since then, I guess you could say.
But going uphill is difficult, so it's like...
it's definitely an outlier performance for them, that week one performance against the Saints. But let's hop into the fantasy outlook for the Packers. You're going to start Rodgers, start Aaron Jones, start Devontae Adams, the big three on this team. I think you can stream the Packers defense. I mean, like I said, they're missing a couple of big guys, but against a Bears offense, it's one of the worst in the league. Yeah. I think they're definitely worthy of a stream. And then Robert Tonyan, who's only had one good week so far this season after being great in fantasy last year. I think at this point, he's not startable anymore. There's better tight end options that you could stream and pick up over him.
Yeah, and if you're really in a pinch, A.J. Dillon isn't terrible of a running back too.
I mean, they started using him as a receiver last week, and they said that they wanted to get him more involved in the passing game. So
maybe like a deep flex.
And especially since the Packers should be up in this ball game, they could rotate into A.J. Dillon more than just carrying Aaron Jones the whole game.
Yeah. For the Bears, really, it's whoever they have at running back is what you want to start in right now. It's listed at probably going to be Khalil Herbert.
Yeah, and I think he's definitely worthy of a start in a pinch, especially if you were able to pick him up on the waiver wire.
Yeah. Flex, Allen Robinson and Darnell Mooney, just because we don't know what's... the situation.
This Bears passing offense has just been awful, but in a game where they should be down, hopefully Justin Fields will get to pass the ball a little bit more, and if both those guys are out there, I think at least one of them should have a decent fantasy day.
Yeah. I think we all pick the Packers in this situation.
Yep, everyone picked the Packers in this one just because they've been on a solid roll lately, and the Bears, even at 3-2, like we said, have been kind of a fake 3-2 team.
Yeah, this one's definitely gonna light a little more fire, put a little more kindling under Matt
Nagy.
Yeah. All right, moving on to another 3-2 team going against the winless Lions, and that's the Bengals. Taking on the Lions at home, and it's just, I think it's time for the Lions to get the win, but, we'll see.
Yeah, so both teams are coming off just heartbreaking losses. Last-second game-winning field goals. Of course, in the Bengals-Packers game, you had the wild Evan McPherson, Mason Crosby battle of who could miss more field goals.
I don't think we ever mentioned it, but McPherson actually celebrated a missed field goal because he thought it went in.
Yeah, and I think it was in the one at the end of regulation or start of overtime, something like that. But yeah, he started celebrating like he thought it went in because it hit off the little flag all the way up top on the goalpost.
Yeah.
And then, of course, the Lions losing their second game of the season, 19-17, on a game-winning field goal. This one against the Vikings last week against Greg Joseph. So both teams looking to rebound from that. Like you said, the Lions, one of two winless teams on the season, looking to get off the snide. For the Bengals, Joe Mixon still dealing with the ankle injury. He did play last week, but was only out there on 28% of snaps, so there was no aggravation in terms of the ankle injury, so look for him to be out there on the field a little bit more.
Yeah.
But also the guy that was the backup that was playing more was Samaje Perine. He's on the COVID list right now, so Chris Evans, the rookie, could be in line for more work, or hopefully Mixon can get out there and get on the field more.
Yeah, I mean, we saw Perine earlier in the week was placed on the COVID list. So I kind of expect Mixon, even not 100%, to really pick up the load. This game is going to be, because the Bengals are definitely trending in a good direction. I think they're a real 3-2 compared to the Bears 3-2.
Definitely realer than the Bears.
Yeah, exactly. They have a more competent offense, and that defense is still developing, I think. And just the poor Lions, just like we say before, they just find new ways to lose games and get screwed. They also will be missing Frank Ragnow, their center, out for the
season
now on turf toe. Wow.
Yeah, that's what he was injured either last week or 2 weeks ago. And
I think it was 2 weeks ago. Yeah.
The original timetable didn't have him out for the season, but it was announced this past week that he'll miss the rest of the season. He was like the second best center in terms of Pro Football Focus's gradings and all that. So a big loss for this offensive line that had already been struggling as a whole on offense. They also lost Quintez Cephas, one of their best receivers, to a broken collarbone. He's gone for the season. So Amon-Ra St. Brown is probably going to be their leading guy now.
Oof. So just, more unlucky breaks for them. And you can tell Dan Campbell, definitely his heart's in the right place.
Yeah, he wants that first victory. But this could be...
they have a chance. I mean, the Bengals,
they've had a chance almost every single week this season.
Yeah, the line's only at 3.5. But with that being said, before we get into fantasy, you and I both take the Bengals.
Yeah. I mean, the Bengals offense, I think, is just very strong, and we've talked about how great of a core that they've got. The defense isn't anything special, but against this Lions offense that really is kind of uninspiring, I guess you could say. I picked the Bengals, you picked the Bengals. Zach has the Lions in this one.
You must think that they're finally going to get a lucky break.
Yeah, they are at home in this one, so we'll see if they can pull out a victory.
Yeah.
In terms of the fantasy outlook for the Bengals, you're going to start Burrow, start Joe Mixon, and then start all three of those wide receivers, Jamar Chase, Tyler Boyd, and T. Higgins, especially if Mixon is still kind of banged up a little bit. Burrow could rely on some short passes just to use as a quote-unquote run game. So I think all the wide receivers are definitely playable in this matchup against the Lions defense.
I see Jamar Chase getting a typical deep ball. I see Higgins and Boyd being more of the possession guys. But that's they're going to be able to do what they want against not as strong of a Lions D.
Yeah, and then on the Lions side, you're going to start DeAndre Swift, start T.J. Hawkinson, even though he's had a couple of bad weeks. And then flex Jamal Williams. He is dealing with an injury and also an illness, so I think he'll be out there on Sunday. And if he is, I think you can flex him because he is getting just about as many touches, if not more, than DeAndre Swift. And I think there's some deep value in Amon-Ra St. Brown. Just because he's the lead receiver in this offense, even though they still use the running backs and the tight end more than their wide receivers, I think he's definitely got some deep value.
They got to pass the ball to somebody.
Yeah, you can at least pick him up and put him on your bench in some of your leagues. But
yes.
Let's move on to the next game, a battle of 1-4 teams.
This one just seems so gross.
Hey, we thought last week with the Patriots being like a 9-point favorite against the Texans, the Colts a 10-point favorite at home, even though they're the same record as the Houston Texans. The Colts obviously coming off of a heartbreaking loss on Monday Night Football against the Ravens, where they were up by 19 points in the ball game, ended up getting forced into overtime and losing that ball game. The Texans, who have been on a downhill slide since week 1, losing 4 in a row.
Yeah, and last week we saw the Texans really get fired out of a cannon, and everything seemed to be trending for them. We saw Mills actually look good, passing the ball to not even just Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, that's what they were up 22-9 against the Patriots, and the Patriots end up storming back and winning 25-22. So both these teams end up blowing big leads last week. But on the offensive side for the Texans, they could get one of their rookie wide receivers, Nico Collins, back. He's been practicing, but it says they probably will be out for one more week, so look for more Brandon Cooks and those other no-name receivers that actually had decent weeks last week.
Yeah.
And then same thing with Tyrod Taylor, who's been out the past couple weeks with a hamstring injury. He'll probably be out at least another week or two, still dealing with that, so more Mills Mafia. And then Laramie Tunsil on the offensive line. He's going to be out at least 4 weeks following thumb surgery. So, once again, kind of like the Lions, where the Texans offense that really hasn't been that good this season, losing are probably their best offensive linemen, definitely going to take a hit as the offense as a whole.
Oh, definitely. And, I will say that I was enamored by their performance in the first half against the Pats.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not trying to let that cloud my judgment, Roach, really. I promise that. And I think Mills' performance last week was an aberration. I don't think he's going to be, as good. And I think this Colts defense, a 1-4 Colts team, they're kind of similar to the Lions, and they shouldn't be 1-4. Just like the Lions shouldn't be 0-5.
Yeah, that's what I mean. We talked about this team at the tough NFC West opponents they've faced, and then should have had a win on Monday Night Football against the Ravens if they had just the defense could have just held for a little bit longer in that game. But one thing to mention on the Colts offense, T.Y. Hilton, who's been out with a neck injury, hasn't played yet this season. He was practicing on Wednesday, so he could make his season debut on Sunday. This is a Colts offense. Carson Wentz, coming off his best game of the season last week, could use another healthy receiver out there besides Michael Pittman.
Yeah, and Zach Pascal and whoever else they're really trying to throw out there. So let's talk about the fantasy outlook. With Texans, it's been the same story since week 2, Brandon Cooks.
Yeah, start Brandon Cooks, even though he didn't have a good week last week, and I wouldn't even consider anyone else on this offense. On the Colts side, you're going to start Jonathan Taylor, start Michael Pittman, and then the Colts defense as well facing the Texans. Obviously, they've been a great defense all season.
Yeah.
I think you can stream Carson Wentz, like I said, coming off of a 300-yard game, couple of touchdowns, his best performance of the season against a great Ravens defense. I think you can stream him in a plus matchup against the Texans.
Yeah. And we across the board, it was Colts, 10-point favorites at home against a struggling Texans team.
Like I said, I mean, between the Colts being 1-4 and the Texans 1-4, the Colts are definitely the better 1-4 team in this matchup. So we've all got the Colts winning this ball game.
All right. Moving on, the 4-1 Rams, 9.5 favorites versus the Giants. Giants are at home. Giants 1-4 though, so this is opposite records of kind of teams.
Yeah, I mean, in the Giants' offense, just talk about the bad luck that they've been having this season.
Yeah,
and especially last week where they lost Daniel Jones, Saquon Barkley, and Kenny Golladay all to injuries, and then Kadarius Toney got a little bit banged up in his career game last week as well. So going through those injuries going into Sunday. So Daniel Jones, Kadarius Toney, both looking like they're on track to play on Sunday. Daniel Jones going through the concussion protocol. Hopefully he'll be able to get cleared either today or tomorrow to play on Sunday. Otherwise it'll be Mike Glennon, who we saw last week as their starting quarterback.
Gross.
Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton have both been practicing this week, and they should return. They've been out the past 2 games with hamstring injuries, so definitely a huge upgrade in terms of their receiving core since they've been missing those guys the past 2 games. And then the guys that are looking like they're not going to be out there, Kenny Golladay, who left last week with a knee injury. He's been on the injury report with a plethora of injuries all season. And then Saquon Barkley with rolling his ankle on his own player. Neither one of them practiced Wednesday or Thursday, so it's looking like they're not going to play. Saquon is probably going to be out at least another game after this one as well. So kind of you lose some guys. You lose Golladay and Barkley, and you get Shepard and Slayton back, so it's kind of like a trade-off.
Not really. I think
not exactly
Golladay
an even
Barkley,
trade-off, but
yeah, I think you'd rather have Golladay and Barkley than those 2 guys.
Yeah, and then especially facing off against this Rams defense that has been pretty good this season. So it'll be a question to see how this Giants offense performs, especially since a lot of these guys haven't been able to play together because of just all the injuries that they've had.
Yeah, I mean, this is for the Rams. This is going to be a game where they're going to want to, score early and often and just impose their will and kind of, I guess, silence the doubters really, because people are doubting that they can, win their division with the Cardinals.
Yeah, since the Cardinals are undefeated.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a game that definitely they're going to want to impose, pretty much their will. Fantasy-wise, with the Rams, I mean, Stafford, you want to keep Matt Stafford going.
Yeah, it's just about everyone on this Rams offense between Stafford, Darrell Henderson, Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, the tight end Tyler Higbee, and then the Rams defense as well, just because of all the just mismatches and stuff on the Giants offense.
And the injuries with the Giants offense. I mean, the Rams D could be like the start of the week pretty much.
Yeah, and then on the Giants side, you're going to start Sterling Shepard, who's been the number 1 option pretty much for Daniel Jones when he's been out there and healthy. Devontae Booker is going to take over the carries for Saquon Barkley. He had 2 touchdowns last week. I don't know if he'll repeat that performance, but definitely just as a starting running back on this team, I think he's at least worthy of a flex consideration, even in a tougher matchup. Same thing with Kadarius Toney, obviously having the career week last week, but also 2 wide receivers coming back, so you don't really know how many touches he's actually going to get in this ball game. So I would say flex consideration, maybe kind of a deeper flex look.
Yep.
And then the other guys, I think you're going to sit Darius Slayton, who hasn't really had a good season when he's been out there, and then Daniel Jones as well, just against a tough Rams defense. I think there's better quarterback options out there.
He could get the fumbles, the dropsies that we've seen him get. And this Rams D could have a few takeaways, so that's going to definitely go against Dan and in this game. So everyone picked the Rams. I think, 9.5 favorites on the road. So.
Yeah, I think it's pretty obvious. Just with the Giants' offense banged up, the Rams 4-1 on the season, they've been looking good. So definitely hammering the Rams in this one.
All right, a very interesting matchup in this next one. The 2 Native American, former Native American.
Yeah, not only that, but 2 teams that are kind of a surprising under 500, both at 2-3 on the season.
Yeah, one of them is a little bit more surprising than the other.
Yeah, that's the Kansas City Chiefs, 2-3. Washington Football Team, 2-3. Chiefs a 6.5-point road favorite going into this ball game. And I think this is going to be a high-scoring matchup, Stein, just because these 2 defenses have been so bad this season. On the Washington football side, definitely underperforming. Chiefs defense usually okay, but they've been very bad this season as well.
Yeah, and we saw that last week, just getting embarrassed against the Bills, really. A lot of deep balls. Washington, their defense, again, it's been so disappointing. Offensively, I don't think they're as strong, as we initially thought, though.
Yeah, we've talked about how Taylor Heineke has kind of been up and down this season in terms of matchups-wise. Yeah. Against this Chiefs defense, I think he should be okay in the ballgame just because of how bad they've been. And like I said, I think it's going to be a high-scoring game where teams are definitely going to be going back and forth, trading scores. So I think Heineke, when we get to fantasy, should be a decent play.
Yeah.
So for the Chiefs, they could be without their big guy on offense. Not Pat Mahomes, not Travis Kelce, but Tyreek Hill dealing with a quad injury. He got back-to-back, did not practice. His status is up in the air for Sunday now.
Whew, that could be a huge loss for them, especially when the Chiefs are trying to get right. And for getting right for the Chiefs is having Kelce and Hill, firing at all cylinders in tandem with Pat Mahomes, who really, he's had a few takeaways, but he's not struggling, so.
Yeah, it's kind of, he's making the same Mahomes throws that he's made in years past. I think some of them are just getting tipped and picked and just kind of been getting a little bit unlucky, but Mecole Hardman had 12 targets last week. He could be the number 1 guy if Tyreek's not going to be able to go.
Yeah, Byron Pringle, still out there too.
Yeah, and then of course Josh Gordon, who made his first appearance for the Chiefs last week as well.
I forgot about him, yeah.
And then for the running game, Clyde Edwards-Helaire placed on IR. Darrell Williams, it looks like he's going to be the number 1 running back going forward, and then Jerick McKinnon picking up a couple touches as well, mainly in the passing game.
Yep.
So let's look at the fantasy outlook for the Chiefs. You're going to start Pat Mahomes, start Darrell Williams as the starting running back, and start Travis Kelce. Obviously, if Tyreek Hill's out there, you're going to be starting him. But if he's not, I think Mecole Hardman could be worthy of a start just as a second receiving option and as the number 1 receiver in this offense.
Yeah, we haven't seen Mecole do exactly what Tyreek can do because everyone kind of predicted him to be like Tyreek Jr.
Yeah.
But if he's not out there and against this Washington defense, I think we could finally see Mecole make that deep pass. You know?
I was going to say at least get a long touchdown pass of 50, 60 yards, something like that.
Exactly. And I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't try to do that and attack this Washington defense. For Washington, Antonio Gibson and Terry McLaurin both looking good as starts against a weaker Chiefs defense. We could see McLaurin kind of get lost in space and really get open. You like Ricky Seals-Jones. I'm not as high on him.
Yeah, at a weak tight end position, he had a couple decent catches last week, so I think he's at least worthy of a stream, maybe in some deeper tight end leagues, some tight end premium, something like that. Just with all the injuries Washington football team has had with the receivers behind Terry McLaurin, Curtis Samuel aggravated his
Logan
groin
Thomas.
injury, so he's probably not going to be out there. So I think he's at least worthy of a stream. J.D. McKissick, you can look at him for deeper PPR value since Washington football team should be trailing in this ball game, so he always gets some looks in the receiving game whenever they're down. And then I think you can stream Taylor Heineke, like I was saying before, just because this should be a high-scoring game, and I think he could have a decent performance.
Yeah, I see him kind of trying to spread the ball out and run around a little bit, and I think he can get open and some space against not as good of a Chiefs defense, but. Despite their defensive woes, I think we all took the Chiefs just because their offense is way stronger than the Washington offense.
Yeah, definitely. So let's move on to our next matchup, and that's going to be the 2-3 Minnesota Vikings, our 2.5-point road favorite. Another road favorite. That's a kind of a common theme this season against the 3-2 Panthers, who have kind of been struggling a little bit of late. Sam Darnold having his worst performance of the season last week, throwing 3 interceptions. So both teams have been struggling to score in the second half, Stein. The Panthers actually have a league-low 7 points scored in the third quarter this season. So kind of a tale of two teams. It's like whoever's going to be up at halftime could be the team that's going to end up winning the ball game.
That's
in
true.
This one.
Yeah. And, it's interesting because 7 points in the third quarter means no field goals, only a touchdown. So really, they must all drives must be stalling around, the 40 or 50 for them.
Yeah, we've seen some other teams like the Seahawks who have been struggling in the second half as well. So it's kind of it's weird to see some of these teams where they look so good in one half and then it's the second half hits and it's just completely lost as a team. But for the Vikings, dealing with a couple injuries to their offense, Dalvin Cook has been in and out of the lineup over the past couple weeks with an ankle injury. He was a full participant in practice on Thursday, so fire him up. He's going to be back to his normal role as the elite running back for this Vikings team. Justin Jefferson has been dealing with an ankle injury this week. He said that he was going to practice on Thursday, but ended up getting the official DNP for Thursday, so now his status is uncertain for Sunday as well. Adam Thielen dealing with a little bit of an injury as well. In terms of them being out there on Sunday, I would say lean more on the better side of questionable, but it's definitely concerning. We'll have to see what the Friday injury report says. Obviously, like I said, we're filming this before then.
Yeah.
So if they're out there on Friday, definitely a good chance for them to play on Sunday. If they're not out there, then I'd start raising some red flags in terms of whether or not they'll be out there.
And this is a winnable game for the Vikings, and they have a chance to go back to 500 with this win. So I think they really, want to get this dub in this situation. So they're going to I think they're going to try to have everyone, ready to go. Mm-hmm. In terms of the Panthers, Matt Rule was quoted saying Christian McCaffrey has a 50% chance to play on Sunday.
Yeah, he got in some limited practices last week. He ended up being ruled doubtful for the game, ended up not playing. Got in a limited practice on Wednesday, but then did not practice Thursday. So I don't know if they're managing his reps or not, just trying to get him more treatment. But I think at the beginning of the week, he was on the better side of questionable. Now I think he's truly questionable to maybe on the wrong side of questionable for this week. So in some leagues, some people probably dropped Chuba Hubbard expecting McCaffrey to be back. Yeah. Might want to look and see if he's out there on the waiver wire. And
could potentially be. I mean, he's definitely hasn't been a substitute for Christian McCaffrey.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's hard to put up Christian McCaffrey numbers.
Well, Madison has been a great substitute for Dalvin, but
that is true. So, so it's looking like a true question mark to see whether or not McCaffrey will be out there on Sunday. So let's look at the fantasy outlook, Stein. For the Vikings, you're going to start whoever's at running back. It's looking like it's going to be Dalvin Cook, but if for whatever reason he's a surprise inactive, you're going to plug in Alexander Mattison like you have over the past couple weeks.
Yep.
Justin Jefferson, Adam Thielen, if they're out there, you're going to start them. If they're not, then maybe pivot to someone like KJ Osborne, Tyler Conklin as well. And then I think Kirk Cousins is kind of risky in this ballgame. The Panthers' defense has been great this season, especially if he doesn't have his full allotment of receivers and skill position guys.
I also saw that a stat for the Panthers defense, third best run defense in the league, right? Actually, first best in the league.
Best? Okay, wow.
Run defense, which is interesting because I thought their secondary was developing. I mean, I think they're a better overall good defense. Mm-hmm. So, even with whatever running back for the Vikings, it could just be a bad matchup, potentially, and we could see a lot of passing. It's all remained to be seen, of course, but
Kirk Cousins had a bad kind of down performances over the past 2 weeks, just one touchdown in each game, so that's why I've got him as a risky play against the Panthers defense. But On the Panthers side, you're going to start Sam Darnold, hoping to bounce back after that bad performance last week.
Yeah.
You're going to start whoever's at running back. Obviously, Christian McCaffrey is active. You're going to start him. If he's not, I think Chuba Hubbard, you can start him as well just because he's going to get touches. DJ Moore, down performance last week, but you're going to keep him in your starting lineup. And then Robbie Anderson, especially if Christian McCaffrey's back, is probably going to eat into his target. So I would sit Robbie Anderson, who's been just a very underperforming that so far this season, kind of one of the biggest surprises in terms of fantasy, who hasn't met expectations.
Yeah. And in this game, you and I have the Panthers, where our buddy Zach has the Vikings.
Yeah, the Vikings are the favorite in this ballgame by 2.5, but I think we both like the Panthers in this ballgame just because I think they're pretty comparable offenses, especially if Christian McCaffrey's out there for the Panthers, and then the Panthers, I think, have a better defense than the Vikings. And if this comes down to a close game where the Vikings need a field goal, I definitely don't have confidence in them hitting a game-winning field goal. They
agree.
did do it last week against the Lions.
I agree. And for me, I definitely think it's going to be with Sam Darnold. That's kind of where the buck stops. And I think Darnold, after such a bad performance last week, he's got to have a better performance this week.
You don't think it can happen 2 weeks?
Yeah, I really don't think
the gambler's fallacy.
Exactly. I'm going with the complete gambler's fallacy. We're not seeing Jets Darnold. We're seeing Panthers Darnold, which has been significantly better.
Yeah. So let's move on to the final game in the 1 o'clock window, and probably the best game or one of the better games that we have on Sunday. And that's a battle of 4-1 teams who were just in amazing games last week. The Chargers and the Ravens. The Ravens are a 2.5-point home favorite. And like I said, with those two games last week, the Chargers winning 47-42. They trailed 5 times against the Browns last week. And then we already mentioned the Ravens playing the Colts on Monday Night Football. They were down 22-3 in the ball game, end up tying it at 25, forcing overtime, and then they win the coin toss, drive down the field, get the game-winning touchdown, and win 31-25. So 2 teams coming off very emotional victories.
Yeah, and the Ravens, nothing's been easy this season for them in terms of their wins. A lot of their...
Yeah, they've had a lot of very close and hard-fought victories.
Yeah, we're going back to the 4th down call, that we had with the Ravens against the Chiefs.
The game-winning, the record-breaking field goal by Justin Tucker against the Lions.
Yeah, and then a blown overtime against the Raiders that they lost. So just... games have been coming down to the last minute.
They've been very, very battle-tested this season,
yeah.
And I think that will definitely help them in the long run and definitely help them against some of these better teams like the Chargers, who have been playing very well this season.
Yeah. If the season were to end today, the Chargers would actually be the 1 seed in the AFC.
Really?
Yes, so right now this is definitely a playoff battle of 2 probable playoff teams, and so it's definitely going to be a good one. Let's kind of talk about what's kind of the X's and O's. The Ravens lost their streak of 100 plus rush games last week.
44 straight games they had 100 yards as a team rushing, but Lamar ended up throwing for over 300 yards last week.
Yeah, so his best throwing performance.
Yeah, that was definitely the focal point of their offense, but going into this week, the Chargers have the worst rush defense. They're allowing 157 yards per game on the ground, so definitely look for Lamar, Latavius Murray, Tyson Williams, Devontae Freeman.
Yeah.
Look for the game plan to kind of be back to the normal Ravens in terms of trying to get that rushing attack going against this defense.
And just Lamar, just Lamar by himself, just kind of making moves. Interesting, though, because after, you are going against this bad rush defense, but also you're coming off a great passing performance, and you're also getting a weapon in Rashad Bateman making his should make his NFL debut on Sunday.
Yeah,
so you have a weapon too now available.
Yeah, that's what he was, their first round pick at the end of the first round this past draft. He hasn't been able to play this season. He had an injury in training camp, but he's looking to make his debut on Sunday. Sammy Watkins actually went down last week, so just another receiving option for Lamar Jackson besides Hollywood Brown and Mark Andrews. And then on the Chargers side, Mike Williams, who has been amazing this season, had a great performance last week with 2 long touchdowns. He's dealing with a knee injury. He didn't practice on Wednesday or Thursday, so once again, definitely going to base it off the Friday practice report to see whether or not he's going to be out there on Sunday. At least get a limited session, and on Friday we'll have people confident that he'll be out there on Sunday.
Yeah.
That would be a huge loss if he's not.
Oh,
if he's
definitely,
not able to play.
for one of their better pass catchers right now. For fantasy-wise, for the Chargers, you gotta stick with Herbert. He's been doing so good this year and just continues to impress.
Yeah, besides week 1, he's been absolutely amazing this season.
Austin Eckler running the ball, Keenan Allen, and then keep an eye on Mike Williams depending on what happens. He probably should be out there because this is a bigger game.
He got injured in the middle of the game last week and he missed a couple of plays and then he was back out there. He had one of his long touchdowns after he was getting looked at for the injury, so I expect him to be out there, but like I said, just monitor that practice report. And then Jared Cook as well, especially if Mike Williams is out, then he should see some more targets as the number 1 tight end in this offense. But for the Chargers, you're going to start pretty much everyone on their team.
Yeah, and that I don't think they're going to be as, numbers aren't going to be as high as last week because this is a better, Ravens defense, I think, than the Browns defense a little bit. For the Ravens, though, because of this such a bad rush defense, Lamar is just, got to be one of the best starts of the week.
And then especially since he's been able to throw the ball very well over the past couple games.
Yeah, also, in speaking of throwing the ball, he's got Hollywood Brown as one of his best targets. I really like if him and Bateman could turn into like the 1 and 2 option, especially with Watkins being out, probably. And then Mark Andrews had a great game last week, so, look to continue his performance. The running backs, though, for them could be interesting because it's kind of a mixed bag right now.
Yeah, like I said, you really don't have... Like, Latavius Murray is like the quote-unquote running back 1, but I feel like they're risky, but I feel like if you got Latavius Murray, then you're probably going to at least put him in your flex position just because the Chargers' rush defense is so bad.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, a lot of that is going to go to Lamar Jackson as well, but you probably put him in your flex position, just hope he gets a rushing touchdown in this ball game.
Yeah, so this is a game that me and Roach actually have different.
Yeah,
Roach has the Ravens. I have the Chargers. Zach follows me with the Chargers. And I think that this game, the Chargers have been really good. So have the Ravens. But the Ravens have been in more close games where the Chargers, I don't think, have been as much. They imposed their will against the Chiefs and, really took over against the Browns at the end.
Yeah, so. This is really pretty much a toss-up pick because both these teams have kind of been battle-tested this season in terms of their wins. Yeah. The Chargers' one loss was a close one to the Cowboys, who obviously have been great this season. So it's really tough to pick between these two teams, but I think the difference maker for me is kind of like what you were saying why you went against the Ravens. I think I kind of went towards the Ravens just because they've been in these close matchups all season. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Chargers have as well. So, but I just picked them just it could just be on recency bias in terms of seeing them on Monday Night Football have an amazing comeback and victory. But yeah, I picked the Ravens.
And it could be the Chargers uniforms for me. Like I could have the uniform.
That powder blue.
I could have the uniform bias. This game is going to be in Baltimore. I don't know if we did mention that. So that probably gives them the 2.5. Over.
Yeah, the favorite in this one. But yeah, like I said, this should be like the best game that we have on Sunday.
Easily, and I think 2.5 might be high. Like this game could honestly be even.
Yeah. So let's move into the 4 o'clock window. Only 3 games in the 4 o'clock window this week as we have the bye weeks. Yeah, we got 1 at 4:05 and then 2 at 4:25.
Why don't they all just start at the same time?
I don't know. It's been a question that we've been asking all season long.
Yeah.
But the 4:05 game, you got the 5-0 Cardinals
great matchup
facing off against the 3-2 Browns. The Browns actually a 3.5 point favorite at home against the undefeated Cardinals in this ball game.
I guess people kind of see the Cardinals as, and I even said it last week. I said that the Cardinals aren't going to go undefeated, because they're the only undefeated team left.
Well, that's when we even talked about how it might be better off to lose a game early on in the season instead of, we brought up the Steelers from last season, how they started out 11-0, 12-0 or whatever, and then got 1 win in their last couple games and lost in the first round.
Yeah,
so.
And the Cardinals are showing dents, like they are showing weakness. Kyler hasn't been as strong.
They won a low-scoring ball game last week.
Losing Max Williams. Running game hasn't been as good as advertised.
Yeah, like I said, they only put up 17 in a 17-10 victory last week against the 49ers. But in this ballgame, we got the battle of the Oklahoma QBs. Baker for the Browns, Kyler, like you mentioned, for the Cardinals. Of course, the back-to-back Heisman winners, the first time that ever happened. This is their second meeting in their NFL careers.
Real quick, I just want to say, remember, I love how the pundits at the beginning of the season for the college football, completely off topic, Spencer Rattler, and you've seen all the...
could have been the next great Oklahoma.
You've seen all the news coming out of Oklahoma right now with that other guy that they want to start.
I was going to say, now that they benched him, something Williams, I'm pretty sure, is their new starting quarterback, or the guy
Devin
that led
Williams
them
or
to...
something. Very generic name, but...
That led them to the victory against Texas. But, yeah, you have the two Heisman-winning quarterbacks out of Oklahoma having their second meeting in the NFL. The Cardinals right now dealing with a little bit of a COVID issue. This is like the biggest COVID spike I think we've seen in an NFL team so far this season.
Yeah, we did have those coaches for like the Saints or something.
Yeah,
or the Giants.
3 positive COVID tests in the Cardinals organization. Apparently, if they have one more positive test, it could go into like an extreme look into their team and testing and all that. So dealing with that right now. Chandler Jones is one of the guys that tested positive for COVID. He's not expected to play in this ballgame, so a huge loss for the Cardinals defense in this one. And then on the Browns side, you got a couple of injuries to their offense, including their 2-star running backs, Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt. Chubb is battling a calf injury. Kareem Hunt battling wrist and knee injuries. Neither one of them practiced on Wednesday or Thursday, so if they are without both of them, this could be huge trouble for this Browns team. But
as we know, they are, they don't want to trust Felton, Yeah,
Demetric Felton, but hopefully one, if not both of them, will be out there on Sunday once again.
Yeah.
That will depend on whether or not they're able to practice on Friday.
I think this is a home game for them, against a good team. I think they're going to be ready, but I think they're going to, try to keep them on the shelf a little bit longer and get them ready for this performance, because they got to milk these guys, till they can't.
I was going to say they were both used a bunch last week, obviously with the 47-42 ball game.
Yeah.
And then Jarvis Landry, who's been out since the second week of the season on IR, he got designated to return from IR, so it opens up a 3-week window where he can come back. He started running earlier this week. I don't think he'll play Sunday. I think he'll be one more week until he's back out next week, and will be a huge help to this receiving game.
Yeah, started running isn't exactly mean that he's ready to be out there catching.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's on the way to being back, but I don't think he'll be back out there this week.
Yeah.
So looking at fantasy-wise, there's going to be a lot of guys that you're going to be starting in this matchup, probably another high-scoring affair. You're going to start Kyler, start the running backs for the Cardinals, James Conner and Chase Edmonds, and then the wide receivers as well. Obviously, DeAndre Hopkins, and then Rondale Moore, Christian Kirk, A.J. Brown. All those guys definitely start worthy, especially since Max Williams is down. That's more targets for those wide.
You said A.J. Brown.
Yeah, A.J. Green, sorry.
That would have been a great pickup for them.
Yeah, A.J. Green, as Max Williams is down, so just more targets for all those wide receivers.
Yeah, and it sucks that they lose Max Williams. I actually don't know who their backup tight end is.
It's Dawson Daniels,
some generic tight end
Daniels,
name.
I think he's on the COVID list right now, or hasn't played
great.
yet this
so now they're going to be on their third tight end.
Yeah, they have Demetrius Harris as their only active tight end right now going into this week.
Yeah, and I don't think he's a start, just because we haven't seen him. Browns wise, you got to stick with Chunt. We love those guys.
Yeah, like I said, definitely monitor to see which one, if not both of them, will be out there.
Yeah, because if one's going to be out there over the other, then that could be one of the best starts of the week, especially with the Cardinals missing Chandler Jones. It's going to be a big hit to their defense. That has been good, but we saw last week that they they got a little banged up. So for quarterback,
of course, a dominant Browns team, and on both sides, like I said, I think it's just going to be a very high scoring matchup.
Yeah, quarterback wise, Baker might have a hard time in this game.
Yeah, he had his best game of the season last week, but against the Cardinals defense, I think he could struggle a little bit, and I would sit Odell Beckham as well.
Yeah, he only had 2 or 3 targets last week.
Even in Baker's best game of the season, he struggled with having just 2 catches in the ball game. And then the tight ends are risky. David Njoku had a blow-up week last week with a long touchdown. But just with the other 2 tight ends there, and Hooper and Bryant, you really don't know who to trust on a week-to-week basis. So
yeah, I would say Bryant's probably the biggest blocking, and Hooper and Njoku are better pass catchers. But still,
like I said, you saw Njoku have 7 catches for over 100 yards last week and a touchdown. And Austin Hooper didn't even have a catch in the ball game. So definitely risky, whichever one, if you end up playing any of them. But in this ball game, I picked the Cardinals to remain undefeated, go to 6-0 on the season. You and Zach both picked the Browns in this ball game.
Yeah, I think being at home is really going to help them. And like I said, the wear is really starting to show on these Cardinals. Kyler, we've seen struggle. Browns had a high scoring performance last week against the Chargers, both offensively and defensively, if that makes sense. Letting up a lot of points, but scoring a lot of points. This one could be close, but I just think the Browns just are going to be able to get it done, and I think we're going to see the last undefeated team.
Yeah, both teams are coming in banged up, so we'll see who's able to have more guys and more important guys out there and healthy.
Yes.
So let's get the two 425 games and a battle of 3-2 teams from the AFC West.
How did this game sneak in?
I would say both teams losing their last two games, and that's the Raiders and the Broncos. Broncos 3.5-point favorite at home. Like I said, both these teams started out 3-0 on the season, and now they've lost their last two games.
Yeah, and the name of the game with the Raiders all week, the news has been about John Gruden's resignation.
Yeah, we broke it last Monday while we were recording our last show. He's out. Rich Bisaccia, I don't even.
Yeah, he's temporary.
He's their interim head coach. 61-year-old guy, never been a head coach at any level.
In his press conference, he was crying. I did see that.
He was on Gruden's staff back in Tampa, so they probably have a very close connection. And then the offensive coordinator, Greg Olson, not that Greg Olson, the tight end, but he will take over in terms of calling plays. So a couple of changes on this coaching staff, obviously with John Gruden resigning, and we'll see how this Raiders team responds to that in their first game without him.
Yeah, I've been kind of torn either way. Are they going to be really inspired to rally around the problems with their team, or are they going to be just completely uninspired and this season's going to be seen as like a loss? So it could go either way. For me, and because it's the Raiders and I know history, I'm kind of leaning on that. This is going to be like, all right, well, we tried. Thanks for coming out, guys.
Yeah, respond kind of negatively to that.
Yeah.
And then on the Broncos side, they've been banged up at receiver this season, losing Jerry Jeudy and KJ Hamler. They signed John Brown to their practice squad, so we'll see if he's active on Sunday. May take him a week to learn the playbook, but a veteran guy that could definitely help them in the interim, especially until Jerry Jeudy comes back in a couple weeks.
Yeah, just an interesting matchup, just because 3-2 teams, kind of battling for that middle spot right now in the AFC West. Fantasy-wise, for the Raiders, Josh Jacobs was back, so you're going to stick with him at running back.
Yeah, just because he gets all the carries. Yeah, Hunter Renfro's been decent, especially in terms of PPR-wise. He's been arguably just as good as Waller in terms of being Derek Carr's number one option.
Waller had a great first week and a few touchdowns sprinkled there, but hasn't had that performance since week 1.
Yeah, hasn't had a blow-up performance, but you're still going to start him because he's one of the elite tight ends in the league.
Yeah.
And I think Derek Carr's risky, kind of like Kirk Cousins, where he's started out the season great, has had two kind of down performances the past 2 weeks, and then against this good Broncos defense, I think he's definitely a risky play out there.
And he's going to be the one who's probably affected most by this, by the Gruden being
the Gruden news.
The Gruden news, yeah. I would say I don't really know how to describe the whole situation because it was really a resignation,
Did a mutual part ways.
Was it a hey man, you gotta get out of here,
Yeah. So and then on the Raiders or the Broncos side, you're gonna start Cortland Sutton, start Noah Fant, and then start the Broncos defense. I think Javonte Williams, Melvin Gordon have been splitting carries. You're going to flex both those guys at the running back position. And then I think Teddy is also risky in this ballgame. He was decent in their first couple games when they were playing those bad teams. But the Raiders' defense isn't anything great, but I think he's still kind of a risky play in this ballgame.
Yeah, I mean, until we see him be fully healthy, I'm not super very trusting in him. But everyone else on that Broncos offense, Cortland Sutton and Noah Fant, and especially the Broncos defense, I think is a low-key really good start because they've been good, and this is they could be against a very uninspired, Raiders offense.
Yeah, so the picks, I picked the Raiders in this ball game. You and Zach both picked the Broncos. I thought this was pretty much a toss-up, and kind of going back to what you were saying, how the team would respond to Gruden being out. Yeah. I think I was leaning more on the side of they could be maybe more inspired to try and get a victory out there. And then also both these teams have been struggling, so it's kind of like they're a toss-up between who you actually pick in this ball game. But I went with the Raiders, even though they're on the road.
Yeah, and both records are 3-2. It's a close game. I think they're pretty similar talent wise, but I'm taking the Broncos just because of history tells me that this Raiders team is just going to fold over and die, and we could see the start of a fire sale. Really, honestly, that could be the truth because really not a lot of things are trending in their direction. But let's move on to a team that everything seems to be trending in a direction, and that's the 4-1 Cowboys traveling to Foxborough, taking on the 2-3 Patriots, and just a random matchup. Honestly,
yeah, NFC AFC matchup.
Yeah, for a 4:00. This could. I guess
the Cowboys got to play at 4:00. You can't put them in a 1:00 window.
That's
they got to be where there's less teams playing. But the Patriots are trying to avoid an 0-4 start at home for the first time under Bill Belichick.
Wow, all their losses have been at home. That has been an interesting stat.
Yeah, so trying to avoid that for the first time. Obviously, not the same Patriots team as they were with Tom Brady as a starting quarterback. Also on their offense, Damian Harris has been dealing with a rib injury, left the game twice last week because of it. He was limited in practice on Thursday. I would say he's on the right side of questionable to be out there on Sunday, and definitely their best running back option on this team, especially since they lost their pass-catching option at running back in James White as well. We talked about the Cowboys, how they're one of the elite offenses in the league. They'll hit you with the run game with Pollard and Zeke, hit you with the passing game between Dak and CeeDee Lamb, Amari Cooper, Dalton Schultz, and then also just a decent defense this season, and they should have
with defensive MVP Trevon Diggs.
Yeah, and they should have a great game against this Patriots offense, who, like I said, has not been the same with Mac Jones under center.
No, and I love this when we talk about the fantasy. You got everyone a who's who of Cowboys offensive players to start. The only guy really maybe to flex is Pollard, just because he's not the number one back.
Yeah, he still gets touches and he has quality performances with those touches, but it's just a fact of if they're up big in this ball game, he could get even more touches. But for the fantasy outlook, like you're mentioning, you're gonna start Zeke, Amari Cooper, CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz, and the Cowboys defense.
I love that Cowboy. Because I don't think anyone started the Cowboys D in the past 4 years.
Yeah, and remember last year they were the worst defense in the league, and so now that they're actually fantasy relevant once again, it's just kind of weird to see
against a very weak, Pats offense.
Yeah, who you're pretty much only going to start Jacoby Myers, who's their number one receiving option, and even Hunter Henry, who's had a nice past couple weeks. I think once again, just a shallow tight end position. I think he could be a start. He's had a touchdown the past 2 weeks. And then the running backs are risky. Damian Harris, like I said, looks like he's going to be out there, but if he's not, Ramondre Stevenson will probably be the lead back in this offense, maybe a little bit of Brandon Bolden and J.J. Taylor as well. But you know how Bill likes to kind of rotate his running backs in and out of there, so I think they're all kind of risky in this matchup.
Yeah, and then Mac Jones, he's gonna have he might have a few interceptions in this game.
Yeah. To Trevon Diggs.
Yeah, I say development's still been nice with Mac, but this is not a defense that he's gonna have a good time against. Right now, me and Roach both took the Cowboys. Zach takes the Patriots. I guess he probably thinking that Belichick can't go 0-4 at home.
Yeah, it must be something like that. But like I said, this is another one of those games for him where he's banking on getting it right and us getting them wrong. But we both like the Cowboys in this ball game. So let's hop into the Sunday night game between the Seahawks and the Steelers. Both teams 2-3. On the season. The Steelers a 5-point favorite at home, and the big news going into this ball game is the Seahawks going to be without Russell Wilson as their starting quarterback for the first time since 2012, as it'll be the first game he's missed in his career, dealing with a fracture, dislocation, and torn tendon in his finger. They're targeting a Week 10 return for him, so that's kind of the best case scenario of when he'd be back out there, but a huge loss and a huge downgrade for the Seahawks offense.
This guy's been so healthy, and he's been starting so many games, and the fact that he's going to be missing is just going to be, ruin this whatever chance the Seahawks had in this game.
Yeah, it's just amazing the first time in his career. Obviously he's dealt with injuries but been able to play through them.
Yeah.
The first time in his career that he will miss a start. Geno Smith.
And over a finger.
We saw him come in relief last week. He'll be the starter for the foreseeable future. Stein, here's a question you'll see in trivia.
Yeah, this probably will be.
The last Seahawks quarterback to start a football game that's not named Russell Wilson was Tavares Jackson. Back January 1st, New Year's Day of 2012, was week 17 back in the 2011-2012 season.
And that probably was, you know what that game was? It was probably one of those games where they were sitting.
No, it actually wasn't.
Oh, really?
That's what I was thinking too. It was the one of two times in Pete Carroll's career with the Seahawks where the team did not make the playoffs. So, that's what, like I said, I was
see
thinking
2012
that too.
Seahawks, and I'm like, it's 2013. That's going to be Legion of Boom kind of Seahawks.
Yeah, I think that was just before, because like I said, that was probably right before they drafted Russell Wilson, and he like came in and became Russell Wilson. So, but yeah, the trivia question for y'all when you hear that at your local bar next time is Tavares Jackson was their starting quarterback.
Yeah. Chris Carson still on the schneid, kind of, has been questionable, did not practice. Probably not going to see him out there.
Yeah, that's what missed last week with a neck injury. Alex Collins, 71% of snaps last week. So if Carson is not able to go, Alex Collins will be their lead
Carroll
back
loves
once
Alex
again.
Collins too, just that.
And then DK Metcalf dealing with a foot injury. He didn't practice on Thursday. So this could be a Seahawks team who, kind of like the Giants, if they're missing a lot of valuable guys on their offense, and their defense, like the Giants, once again, is not good.
Yeah,
so.
There's been rumblings, on social media about how bad this Seahawks team appears to be. On paper, they seem good, but just like Jamal Adams not being...
I think they could end up being kind of like the 49ers of last season, where just so many like key injuries to this team just could be too much for them, and they could end up finishing with about a 6-11, 7-10 record, something like that.
They are facing the Steelers, though, and the Steelers have been a mixed bag of a team.
Yeah,
and
did get a victory last week against the Broncos, but we've mentioned the woes
Broncos,
and the injuries of Big Ben so far this season. They're going to be without Juju for the rest of the season now, as he got injured last week. So,
this is the classic stroking game, though, for the Steelers. I think they can get out there and impose their will. They're going to make Harris look like amazing. I mean, I think Harris is good, but they're also going to be praising Big Ben too. And even though I don't know, do you think he's going to be passing a bunch, or they're going to be running the ball with Harris?
I think they're going to be running with Najee a bunch, and they should have a lead pretty early in this ball game, and then be able to rely on Najee a lot. So, which will segue into our fantasy outlook. For the Steelers, you're going to start Najee and start the two wide receivers with Chase Claypool and Deontay Johnson, who will eat up even more targets with no Juju out there. And then the Steelers' defense, I think, is a start. They've been a great defense for the past couple years. And, of course, with the Seahawks, all the losses that they have on their team, having the backup quarterback in, maybe a backup running back, and maybe without DK Metcalf as well, you're definitely starting that Steelers defense. But Big Ben, even with the okay performance last week, he's still going to be a risky play, and someone who I'd rather have another option than having to start Big Ben.
Yeah, I concur with that. Seahawks side of the ball, keep an eye on DK if he's playing or not. You say start DK or Lockett, but with Geno Smith,
I think both of them are fringe wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2 with Russell Wilson. So you're obviously going to downgrade them with Geno Smith at quarterback, but I think they're still at least wide receiver 2, if not flex options, if they're both out there and healthy. Because Lockett is always could always just burn for a long touchdown. Yeah. So I think they're both still definitely startable. You're not going to start Geno Smith, especially in this matchup against the Steelers defense.
Nah, he could get eaten up all night.
If Chris Carson is active, I think you're going to start him just because he is a reliable back and gets plenty of touches in this offense.
Yeah.
But if he's not, I think you can give Alex Collins the flex option just because he was out there for over 70% of snaps. He should eat up a lot of the volume that Chris Carson usually gets.
Yeah, and me and Roach both have the Steelers, where Zach, again, going against the grain, takes the Seahawks.
It hurt picking the Steelers in this ballgame, but just with the Seahawks dealing with the loss of Russell Wilson and then potentially other injuries to this offense, their defense is not good. Even against kind of a middling Steelers offense, I think the Steelers will end up getting a victory in this ballgame.
That was my thought process. I don't know what Zach was really... I guess Zach just has hope that the Steelers are that bad, maybe.
And maybe kind of like the Seahawks playing inspired, like trying to get a win for Russ, even though he's not out there and playing. But we'll see how that goes on Sunday night. So let's hop into the last game that we have, the Monday night game. And it's the 4-1 Bills, a 5.5-point road favorite against the 3-2 Titans. The Bills coming off the great victory on Sunday Night Football against the Chiefs. The Titans 3-2 on the season, but I would say one of the weaker 3-2 teams that we have so far.
Yeah.
Just their offense, besides Derrick Henry, has not been performing like they did last season.
And their defense has just been oof.
Yeah, their defense has not been good. So, but one piece of good news for the Titans is Julio Jones returned to practice this week, so he should be back out there after missing the past couple games with a leg injury. Yeah. And then A.J. Brown, who was out there last week, didn't suffer any setbacks. He has been practicing this week, so they should be back to full strength in terms of the receivers. Hopefully that means well for Ryan Tannehill and just his passing offense as a whole.
Yeah, but it is going to be a tough test. They are at home, so that kind of gives them a little bit of a positive, thing. But the fact that they are going against the Bills, who just been just a juggernaut on offense and defense.
Yeah, one of the best offenses and defenses so far in the league. Yeah. Definitely going to be a tough test for Tannehill and the offense against one of the league's best defenses and one of the league's best in terms of getting takeaways from you, so they're going to have to protect the football. Yep. Like I said, the Bills, obviously, besides their outlier in Week 1 against the Steelers, have been just amazing this season, and they're looking to, and I think as all of our picks are with the Bills, I think they're going to keep the ball rolling on Monday night.
Yeah, I mean, the way the Titans can try to win this is to just keep running the ball with Henry. I think that would really that's their best bet. Mm-hmm. But the Bills are going to. I would say the Bills are going to stack the box, though. That's going to be the issue.
Yeah, like I said, and the Bills have been one of the best run defenses so far this season. So we'll see how that goes for Derrick Henry and company. For the fantasy outlook for the Bills, you're going to start just about everybody with Josh Allen. Zach Moss has been their number one running back the past couple weeks of the season. Stephon Diggs, even though he's been playing kind of down this season, you're still going to start him. Emmanuel Sanders has been a great addition to this Bills offense. Start him as well. Dawson Knox, a career year. Keep starting him. And then the Bills' defense, even against a Titans offense that does have Derrick Henry, they've been so good this season, you just cannot sit them in this ball game.
Yeah, and then Singletary and Beasley are both a little bit risky. Singletary not as good as Moss has been with touchdowns. Mm-hmm. And then Beasley is definitely more of the possession guy.
But he's hasn't seen the targets over the past couple weeks, just had like 1 or 2 catches over the past 2 or 3 weeks, so he's definitely a risky play whether or not Allen throws to him. On the Titans side, you're going to start Derrick Henry, start A.J. Brown, and then I think Julio and Tannehill are risky. Obviously, Julio coming off the injury, and then Tannehill just overall has not been the same Tannehill from last season and the past couple seasons. So both those
they're going to try to get after him and make him throw under pressure.
Yeah, and even A.J. Brown, you could say, is risky just with his first week back being last week. He's going to get shadowed probably by Tre'Davious White in this ball game, so definitely a risky play for him as well. I'd say the only one that you're super confident in starting is going to be Derrick Henry.
Yeah, I mean, that's pretty much you hit the nail on the head right there. We all picked the Bills in this one, as Roach mentioned, so I think we're all just thinking that the Titans, we still think have a good running offense, but they're just going against the buzzsaw that is the Bills right now.
Yeah. All right, so overall for the week, you and I have 4 games different in this one. Back to our usual.
shtick.
Zach and I have 7 games different. We mentioned all the ones where he was the only one that picked them. 7 games between him and I, so it could be a very up and down week for one of us. And then you and Zach have 5 games different. So I like all the games different though going into this week. So we might not. It could be a very blowout matchup for one of us, or it could be very close between all 3 of us going into some of these final games. Because I think a lot of the ones we have different are closer to the 4 o'clock and then the primetime games. So
that's fun. I like a little bit of. I don't like chalk, so I like having messing it up a little bit.
Yeah, us having the variance between. But anyways, guys, that's gonna do it for our Week 6 preview. Be sure to...
You forgot you did forget my college game of the week. Stein's college game of the week. As fun as we had some good weeks last week in college football. Not as good of a week this week, but I will say the best matchup, I think, is going to be Georgia-Kentucky.
Yeah, that's where game day is this week. There's only 2 top 25 matchups. The other one is Oklahoma State versus and Texas, 12 versus 25. So
that's an interesting. That's a weird matchup. I think that can go either way. But I think this Georgia-Kentucky matchup is good because you have a Kentucky team that no one knows what to expect against.
Undefeated probably for the first time in forever, this far into the season.
And Georgia, hasn't had to play down. I think Georgia's going to impose their will. They have
They're up to number 1 now in the rankings, so with Alabama loss.
But I think this is just a low-key good matchup, and I don't think it's going to be as much of an ass-kicking as people think it could be. I think this... It potentially, I think a few bounces have to go to Kentucky's way in the first half.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, we've tried to say that a lot, is that, Georgia could end up having a close ball game and really haven't had that this
historically,
season.
though, Georgia has lost to a random opponent in the East that's not Florida.
They have.
We've seen South Carolina, we've seen Mizzou, and those teams kind of beat. So this could be that time.
Like you said, they're going to need a couple bounces to go their way in terms of Kentucky, and then also have pretty much a flawless performance on offense. But I was
listening on the radio, Chris Rodriguez, the running back for Kentucky, Georgia kid, born and raised here, never even recruited by Georgia, and he had a quote on the radio that I heard that really spoke to me. He said that he's going to empty the tank against Georgia.
Okay. So we'll see what happens on Saturday, but that's a little preview for college football this week, but that's going to do it for our Week 6 NFL preview. Be sure to like this video, subscribe to the YouTube channel, follow us on Instagram at The Couch Quarterbacks for all the up-to-date information and all the punishments that we have every single week. This is one of the easier punishments.
It's just a screenshot, not even a video kind of punishment.
Exactly. But that's going to do it. I'm Andrew Roach. That's Ben Steinberg, and we'll see you guys on the flip side.
Deuces.